Alright Lantis, so in less than a week's time, we are going to be guessing our newest SSR character, which in this case appears to be an SSR Gin, also releasing with an SR Rangiku, and these characters' purpose is to solidify and potentially make the Thrust team the best team that it can potentially be. Gin is going to be an SSR full assault Thrust unit, meanwhile Rangiku is going to be an SR support Thrust unit. The idea is that Rangiku is going to make Gin a better character by increasing his damage output. But for today's video, we're here to have a breakdown of the character's kit before he does release in a week's time. So it should go without saying, but this is based off of data mined information. There is a chance the character will be a little bit different when he does release in less than a week's time, but likely this is what you are going to see when Gin does release. And with that in mind, shout out to Alpix Tengen for this particular graphic breaking down the character. But having a close look at what Gin is going to offer, first up, let's have a look at his passive effects. Gin's core passive is going to be called 100 Blades. Gin's attack deals damage to an enemy, and when impale points reach 100, impale triggers once, dealing damage equal to 400% of Gin's attack. And with the exception of Gin's own attacks, special attacks, techniques, battlefield skills, ultimates, and also counterattacks from allies will also apply 10 impale points to the enemy, which is on a 1-second cooldown. So right now, just based off the character's core passive, the main way this character is going to be dealing damage from the seams of it is by triggering impale. And this, in a sense, is going to be very similar to Kaname as a character, which is great because they want to be used together. Kaname, after all, is going to be the sub-DPS for this team, but Kaname is going to be applying Wound, dealing damage over time, meanwhile Gin is going to be inflicting Impale. And from the looks of it, based off the passive too, is that both Gin is going to be able to apply Impale, also stack up Kaname's Wound effect by being the main DPS, and then whenever you switch into Kaname, Kaname is also at the same time going to be building up Impale points, while also inflicting Wound when he's in combat. For Gin's first passive, every time Impale is triggered, Gin has a 100% chance to gain 1 technique point. Now, technique points is important for the character's technique, so more on that in a few minutes. For his second passive, when an ally's battlefield skill or technique hits an enemy, increase the damage dealt by Impale by 60%. So another passive just to further increase the character's damage output, but this one more so benefiting allies, again making Kaname almost a perfect ally for a character like Gin. And then lastly, for his third passive, damage dealt by Impale goes up by 150%. So it's clear from just the passives alone that Impale is going to be one of the main ways that Gin is going to be able to deal damage, whether he's on the field or his sub-DPS is on the field. When anyone is attacking, enemies are going to be building up Impale, and once it does reach 100 points, a lot of damage is going to be happening. Which is great because Gin is also going to be dealing a lot of damage from the character's actual attacks. So let's have a look at those. So for Gin's dodge, once he does perform a perfect dodge, for 4 seconds, you will gain a 15% attack speed and a 25% movement speed. This is standard for every character, especially SSRs. However, Gin does gain 1 technique point. For Gin's counter, he will counter specifically with Shinzo, deals upwards to 1,450% of his attack, which is actually very high, and applies 30 impale points, but also gains 2 technique points. For Gin's basic attack, he will attack an enemy in front of him up to 5 times, deals damage equal to 120% of his attack, which again is also very similar to very good DPS characters like Tosha and also Ichigo, actually from the looks of it a little bit higher. So using a Bankai Ichigo as an example, while not fully comparable because this is a level 7 skill, which I believe skills do max out at level 10, the number that we are looking at Gin here is at level 10. Ichigo's level 7 stat is 430% of his attack stat. Meanwhile, Toshiro's is also very similar, around 370%. But of course, Toshiro does have access to his Tensou Jurin form, which does allow him to go up to 994% of his attack stat when dealing basic attacks. So what it seems like is that Gin is going to be able to deal a lot of basic attack damage, definitely higher than Ichigo and Toshiro. However, of course, when compared to Toshiro's Tensou Jurin form, Toshiro is then going to be able to deal more damage. But for a basic stat, this is actually looking really good. But while you are dealing your basic attacks, you will also apply 35 points of impale, and also accumulate spiritual pressure to then let off his special attack, but as of right now, we don't really have any information regarding the character's special attack. For Gin's technique, he will unleash Shinzo. In this case, Gin will also enter a charge mode, consuming 2 technique points per charge to increase the technique's power. The skill will be released when all technique points are depleted, and Gin is invincible during this period. So right here might be one of the more powerful attacks in the game. We don't really get to see any numbers in terms of how hard it is going to hit, but it is going to be based on how many technique points you do consume, and as already stated, you can gain these technique points by dodging an enemy's attack, countering an enemy's attack, and also most importantly, the main way you are going to obtain technique points is by inflicting impale against the enemy. Every time it's inflicted, you gain 1 technique point. Now, Gin is going to be the first character in the game with a charge technique. You could definitely tell that by the gameplay, and the reason why we were able to predict that was more so because the character in the past, Moso Kenpachi, who is yet to release, has a very similar technique where you charge it up. I think right now the best thing about this technique is the fact that you do become invincible during this period. So nothing is going to be stopping Gin from letting off this technique, which I think is a good thing, because if you could get interrupted, that would be kind of annoying, especially when you have to sit there for around a second to let off the full power. So all the technique points that you are gaining throughout combat is basically going to be focused on that technique effects. Because if we have a look at his Bankai, which doesn't consume any technique points, so that's strictly again only on the character's technique, but Gin's ultimate is going to be his Bankai, quickly closing in on an enemy and performs several thrusts. He then activates Bankai and unleashes a fatal attack much faster than his Shikai and deals damage equal to 3,625 of his attack, while also applying 50 impale points. So once more, in terms of damage numbers here, this seems relatively high. We don't know the character's base stats itself, and I'm not sure how his attack stat is going to compare to Ichigo and also Toshiro. But right now, the number is actually looking really good, because 3,625% of his attack seems really high, to be fair, compared to, again, Toshiro and also Ichigo, where Ichigo right now at level 7 on my account currently goes up to 2,625. The next level will go to 2,800%, and by the time it reaches level 10, it will probably cap around just above 3,000. But even right now, with that 2,600 damage multiplier, Ichigo is able to deal millions of damage, so I wouldn't be surprised if Gin is able to put equally, if not from the looks of it, even better numbers just from his ultimate. So right now, that is basically Gin's breakdown in terms of his passives and also his attacks. There's still more we need to know about the character, more so regarding the character's core stamp and also weapon stamp, but from the looks of it, it's exactly as you expect. Gin is going to be a pretty good damage dealer for a pretty good team. The idea of being able to use this character alongside Kaname sounds actually pretty exciting, but fortunately from the looks of it, Gin's damage output isn't strictly tied behind the impale status element. While of course that would likely add a lot of damage on top of the character's kit, the numbers that we are seeing here based on his basic attack, ultimate, and technique seem to be really impressive, so I'm actually kind of scared in a way to see how much damage this character is going to be able to deal, but it does look to be impressive. So if you are someone that likes Gin and also Kaname as a character and is looking forward to trying out a whole new team, Gin is definitely going to solidify this team as potentially one of the best, if not the best in the game, maybe until Aizen comes out and makes the Spirit team even better. Of course, only time will tell, but Gin right now is looking to be an absolutely amazing character. Once more, especially when you are pairing him with Kaname. Because right now, the main go-to Thrust team does consist of Kaname and also Ikaku, with Kaname, unironically again, being the main damage dealer, in a way showing that support sub-DPS units can actually be somewhat crazy, and that's why I kind of have hope that Aizen in the future is going to be very similar to Kaname, or even better than Kaname, and maybe even out-DPS Toshiro, which would be a crazy thought, because Toshiro right now is a really good damage dealer. But the Thrust team itself is already good as is. Throwing Gin to the team, it's going to make it even better. So in the comments below, let me know how you guys feel about Gin, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care and peace.